Today we are going to start about chapter 3 Psychology class 11th NCERT The basis of human behavior. In this chapter we will going to cover up for the basic discussion and introduction of the basis of human behavior. Then we will be covering about evolutionary perspective, biological and cultural roots, biological basis of behavior, neurons, structure and functions of nervous system and endocrine system, and the relationship with behavior and experience. Under this we will be covering the nervous system, the endocrine system, and another main topic is heredity, genes and behavior. Next is cultural basis, socio-cultural shaping of behavior. Under this we will be covering concept of culture, biological and cultural transmission. Next topic is inculturation, socialization, and acculturation. So, human beings, that is the Homo sapiens, are the most developed organisms among all creatures on this earth. So, their ability to walk upright, larger brain size relative to body weight, and the proportion of specialized brain tissues make them distinct from other species. These features have evolved through millions of years and have enabled them to engage in several complex behaviors. Scientists have attempted to study the relationship of complex human behavior with the processes of the nervous system, particularly the brain. They have tried to discover the neural basis of thoughts, feelings, and actions. By understanding the biological aspects of human beings, we will be able to appreciate how the brain, environment, and behavior interact to generate unique forms of behavior. So, in this chapter, we will begin with a general description of the nervous system in an evolutionary perspective. So, first, we will going to start about now evolutionary perspective. So, you must have observed that people differ with respect to their physical and psychological characteristics. The uniqueness of individuals results from the interaction of their genetic endowments and environmental demands. In this world, there are millions of different species of organisms, differing in a variety of ways. Biologists believe that these species were not always like this. They have evolved to their present form from their pre existing forms. It is estimated that the characteristics of modern human beings developed some 2 lakh years ago as a result of their continuous interaction with the environment. Evolution refers to gradual and orderly biological changes that result in a species from their pre existing forms in response to the changing adaptational demands of their environment. Physiological as well as behavioral changes that occur due to the evolutionary process are so slow that they become visible after hundreds of generations. Evolution occurs through the process of natural selection. We know that members of each species vary greatly in their physical structure and behavior. The traits or characteristics that are associated with high rate of survival and reproduction of those species are the most likely ones to be passed on to the next generations. When repeated generation after generation, natural selection leads to the evolution of new species that are more effectively adapted to their particular environment. This is very similar to the selective breeding of horses or other animals these days. Breeders select the fittest and the fastest male and female horses from their stock and promote them for selective breeding so that they can get the fittest horses. Fitness is the ability of an organism to survive and contribute its genes to the next generation. Three important features of modern human beings differentiate them from their ancestors. First is a bigger and developed brain with increased capacity for cognitive behaviors like perception, memory, reasoning, problem solving, and use of language for communication. Second, ability to walk upright on two legs. And three, a free hand with a workable opposing thumb. These features have been with us for several thousand years. Our behaviors are highly complex and more developed than those of other species because we have got a large and highly developed brain. Human brain development is evidenced by two facts. Firstly, the weight of the brain is about 2.35% of the total body weight, and it is the highest among all species. In elephant, it is of 0.2%. Secondly, the human cerebrum is more evolved than other parts of the brain. These evolutions have resulted due to the influence of environmental demands. Some behaviors play an obvious role in evolution. For example, the ability to find food, avoid predators, and defend one's young are the objectives related to the survival of the organisms as well as their species. The biological and behavioral qualities which are helpful in meeting these objectives increase an organism's ability to pass it on to the future generation through its genes. The environmental demands lead to biological and behavioral changes over a long period of time. Next, we will going to cover biological and cultural roots. So, an important determinant of our behavior is the biological structures that we have inherited from our ancestors in the form of developed body and the brain. The importance of such a biological basis become obvious when we observe cases in which brain cells have been destroyed by any disease, use of drug or an accident. Such cases develop various kinds of physical and behavioral disabilities. Many children develop mental retardation and other abnormal symptoms due to such cases develop various kinds of physical and behavioral disabilities. Many children develop mental retardation and other abnormal symptoms due to transmission of a faulty gene from the parents. As human beings, we not only share a biological system but also certain cultural systems. These systems are quite varied across human populations. All of us negotiate our lives with the culture in which we are born and brought up. Culture provides us with different experiences and opportunities of learning by putting us in a variety of situations or placing different demands on our lives. Such experiences, opportunities, and demands also influence our behavior considerably. These influences become more potent and visible as we move from infancy to later years of life. Thus, besides biological basis, there are cultural bases of behavior also. Now we will cover next topic, biological basis of behavior. Previously, we discussed biological and cultural roots. Now, we will be discussing biological basis of behavior. In this, we will be first understand neurons. So, neuron is the basic unit of our nervous system. Neurons are specialized cells which possess the unique property of converting various forms of stimuli into electrical impulses. They are also specialized for reception, conduction, and transmission of information in the form of electrochemical signals. They receive information from sense organs or from other adjacent neurons, carry them to the central nervous system, brain, and spinal cord, and bring motor information from the central nervous system to the motor organs, muscles, and glands. Nearly 12 billion neurons are found in the human nervous system. They are of many types and vary considerably in shape, size, chemical composition, and function. Despite Despite these differences, they share three fundamental components, that is soma, dendrites, and axon. The soma or cell body is the main body of the nerve cell. It contains the nucleus of the cell as well as other structures common to living cells of the of all types. The genetic material of the neuron is stored inside the nucleus, and it becomes the genetic material of the neuron is stored inside the nucleus, and it becomes actively engaged during cell reproduction and protein synthesis. The soma also contains most of the cytoplasm. The soma also contains most of the cytoplasm, that is the cell fluid of the neuron. Dendrites are the branch like specialized structures emanating from the soma. They are the receiving ends of a neuron. Their function is to receive the incoming neural impulses from adjacent neurons or directly from the sense organs. On dendrites are found specialized receptors which become active when a signal arrives in electrochemical or biochemical form. The received signals are passed on to soma and to axon so that the information is relayed to another neuron or to muscles. The axon conducts the information along its length, which can be several feet in the spinal cord and less than a millimeter in the brain. At the terminal point, the axon branches into small structures called terminal buttons. These buttons have the capability for transmitting information to another neuron, gland, and muscle. Neurons generally conduct information in one direction, that is, from the dendrites through soma and axon to the terminal buttons. The conduction of information from one place to another in the nervous system is done through nerves, which are bundles of axons. Nerves are mainly of two types, sensory and motor. Sensory nerves, also called efferent nerves, carry information from sense organs to central nervous system. On the other hand, motor nerves, also called efferent nerves, carry information from central nervous system to muscles or glands. A motor nerve conducts neural commands which direct control and regulates our movements and other responses. There are some mixed nerves also, but sensory and motor fibers in these nerves are separate. Another is nerve impulse. So, information travels within the nervous system in the form of a nerve impulse. When stimulus energy comes into contact with receptors, electrical changes in the nerve potential start. Nerve potential is a sudden change in the electrical potential of the surface of a neuron. When the stimulus energy is relatively weak, when the stimulus energy is weak, the electrical changes are so small that the nerve impulse is not generated and we do not feel that stimulus. If the stimulus energy is relatively strong, electrical impulses are generated and conducted towards the central nervous system. The strength of the nerve impulse, however, does not depend on the strength of the stimulus that started the impulse. The nerve fibers work according to the all or none principle, which means that they either respond completely or do not respond at all. The strength of the nerve impulse remains constant along the nerve fiber. Synapse. So, what is synapse? Information is transmitted from one place to another within the nervous system in the form of a neural impulse. A single neuron can carry a neural impulse up to a distance covered by the length of its axon. When the impulse is to be conducted to a distant part of the body, a number of neurons participate in the process. In this process, one neuron faithfully relays the information to a neighboring neuron. The axon tip of a preceding neuron make functional connections or synapse with dendrites of the other neuron. A neuron is never physically connected with another neuron, rather, there is a small gap between the two. This gap is known as synaptic cleft. The neural impulse from one neuron is transmitted by a complex synaptic transmission process to another neuron. The conduction of neural impulse in the axon is electrochemical, while the nature of synaptic transmission is chemical. The chemical substances are known as neurotransmitters.